The Ferris wheel loomed, a skeletal giant against the moon. Below it, Wonderland Adventure Park was a graveyard of laughter. Sarah shivered. She clutched Mike's hand.
Are you sure this is the place?
Mike whispered. His voice trembled.
Emma's necklace. It was found here.
The park gates creaked open as if beckoning them. A shiver ran down Sarah's spine. This place felt wrong, cold, empty. But she had to find Emma. The air was thick with the smell of decay and something else, something sweet and sickening. Sarah's heart pounded. She heard it again. Faint music. A carousel tune.
Did you hear that?
Mike nodded, his eyes wide with fear. The music was growing louder, and with it came whispers, soft, chilling whispers carried on the wind. They ventured deeper into the park, past broken-down rides and empty booths. Shadows seemed to dance at the edge of their vision. They reached the main midway, games of chance with prizes long gone to dust. And then Sarah saw them, footprints, small like a child's, leading towards a giant, dilapidated structure, the Hall of Mirrors.
Emma?
Sarah called out, her voice echoing in the stillness. Only the wind answered. The footprints led right to the entrance of the Hall of Mirrors. The entrance was a gaping maw, swallowing the moonlight. Sarah felt a chill. She knew she had to go in. The air inside was heavy and cold. The scent of decay intensified, making Sarah gag. She covered her mouth with her sleeve, trying to block out the stench, but it was no use. The smell seemed to seep into her very being, clinging to her clothes and skin. It was as if the hall itself was alive, breathing out its foul breath, suffocating them with every step they took. Mirrors, cracked and dusty, lined the walls, reflecting their fear back at them. Each mirror seemed to hold a piece of the past, a fragment of the countless souls who had wandered these halls before them. The reflections were not just of their physical forms, but of their deepest fears and anxieties. It was as if the mirrors could see into their very souls, exposing their darkest secrets. Each reflection seemed to twist their images, turning smiles into grimaces. The once familiar faces were now grotesque and distorted, mocking them with every glance. It was a cruel game, a twisted funhouse where nothing was as it seemed. The mirrors played tricks on their minds, making them question their own sanity. Were they really seeing what was in front of them, or was it all just an illusion?
This place is messed up. Sarah's voice trembled as she spoke, her eyes darting around the room. She could feel the walls closing in on her, the mirrors pressing in from all sides. It was a claustrophobic nightmare, a maze with no way out.
Mike muttered, his voice echoing strangely. He was right. The layout made no sense. It was as if the hall was constantly shifting, changing its shape to confuse and trap them. Every turn led to another dead end. Every corridor seemed to loop back on itself. It was a labyrinth designed to drive them mad, corridors that led nowhere, dead ends reflecting infinite darkness. The further they went, the darker it became until they were swallowed by the blackness. It was a void, an abyss that threatened to consume them whole. They could hear their own footsteps echoing back at them, a constant reminder of their isolation. The music was louder now, a discordant waltz, and the whispers were closer, surrounding them, taunting them. The voices were indistinct, a murmur of malevolent intent. They could feel the presence of unseen eyes watching them, following their every move. It was a haunting symphony, a cacophony of fear that played on their nerves. The Hall of Mirrors was not just a place, it was a living nightmare, a trap from which there was no escape. Section 5, Reflections of Terror. Then Sarah saw her. In the distance, a fleeting glimpse in a dusty mirror. Emma. She was smiling, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was cold, empty.
Emma.
Sarah cried, running towards the image, but it was gone. Only her own panicked reflections stared back. Suddenly, the mirrors around them came alive. Images flashed by, distorted faces, grotesque shapes, and then skeletal hands reaching out, scrabbling at the glass. Section 6. Escape from Wonderland. Panic seized Sarah. The once vibrant and joyful amusement park had turned into a nightmarish labyrinth. The rides, now rusted and broken, loomed like sinister shadows. The air was thick with an eerie silence, only broken by the occasional creak of a decaying ride. She grabbed Mike's hand and ran. Their footsteps echoed through the desolate park, a stark contrast to the laughter and joy that once filled the air. The ground beneath them was uneven, littered with debris and fallen leaves, making every step a challenge. They ran through the maze of mirrors, their own fear chasing them. The reflections distorted their images, making it hard to distinguish reality from illusion. Every turn seemed to lead them deeper into the labyrinth, the walls closing in on them. Behind them, the laughter grew louder, echoing through the halls. It was a chilling sound, a reminder of the malevolent presence that haunted the park. The laughter seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, making it impossible to pinpoint its source. Finally, they burst out of the Hall of Mirrors and into the cool night air. The sudden change in temperature was a shock to their systems, but it was a welcome relief from the stifling atmosphere inside.
We can't stop now, Mike panted, his voice filled with urgency. We have to keep moving.
Sarah gasped for breath, her lungs burning. She looked back at the Hall of Mirrors, its shattered reflection mocking them. The broken glass glinted in the moonlight, a stark reminder of the danger they had just escaped. They had to get out of this place, now. The park was a maze of twisted metal and broken dreams, each corner hiding potential threats. The once familiar paths were now treacherous, filled with obstacles and hidden dangers.
Let's go, Sarah. We need to get out of here, now, Mike urged, his grip tightening on her hand. They sprinted through the park, their hearts pounding in their chests. The exit seemed so far away, but they couldn't afford to slow down. Every second counted in their desperate bid for freedom. As they neared the exit, the sense of hope grew stronger. The gate was within sight, a beacon of safety in the midst of chaos. They pushed themselves harder, fueled by the promise of escape. With one final burst of energy, they burst through the gate and collapsed on the ground outside. The cool night air filled their lungs, a stark contrast to the oppressive atmosphere they had just left behind. They were free, but the memory of the nightmare would haunt them forever.
They ran through the deserted park, past the ghostly outlines of rides. The air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the sound of their footsteps and the occasional creak of a rusted swing. The once vibrant amusement park now stood as a haunting reminder of forgotten joy, its rides frozen in time, shrouded in a ghostly mist. The music followed them, relentless, drawing them towards the center of the park, towards the carousel. It was a melody that seemed to seep into their very bones, a haunting tune that played on an endless loop. The closer they got, the louder it became, as if the carousel itself was calling out to them, beckoning them to come closer.
It stood there, a macabre monument. The once bright horses were now chipped and faded, their painted eyes staring blankly. Each horse seemed to tell a story of its own, tales of laughter and joy now replaced with sorrow and despair. The carousel, once a symbol of happiness, now stood as a grim reminder of the past. But it was moving, slowly spinning to the haunting melody. The creaking of the old wood and the soft whir of the machinery added to the eerie atmosphere. It was as if the carousel was alive, each turn of the wheel a heartbeat, each note of the melody a whisper of forgotten souls.
As they got closer, Sarah noticed the shadows on the carousel, small figures sitting on the horses. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but as they drew nearer, the figures became clearer. They were children, or at least they appeared to be. Their faces were pale, their eyes hollow, and their expressions vacant. Children, their laughter echoing through the night. Ghostly, echoing laughter. It was a sound that sent chills down their spines, a haunting reminder of the park's tragic past. The laughter seemed to come from all directions, surrounding them, trapping them in a web of fear and uncertainty.
Do you see them too? The children, they're everywhere. Their presence was overwhelming, a constant reminder of the park's dark history. Each child seemed to carry a piece of the past with them, their ghostly forms a testament to the lives that were lost.
Yes, Mike, they're not real, are they? Sarah's voice trembled as she spoke, her fear evident in every word. She wanted to believe that it was all just a figment of their imagination, a trick of the light, but deep down, she knew the truth. The children were real, and they were trapped in the carousel's endless cycle.
Come play with us, forever! The voice was soft, almost a whisper, but it carried a weight that was impossible to ignore. It was an invitation, a plea, and a command all at once. The children wanted them to join their eternal game, to become a part of the carousel's grim melody. And as the music played on, they felt themselves being drawn in, unable to resist the call of the haunted park.
They were surrounded. The park gates, once creaking and rusty, were now sealed shut, glowing with an unnatural light. The music seemed to press down on them, suffocating them.
I feel a cold dread creeping into my heart. We're trapped.
She looked at Mike, his face pale with terror. He was just as scared as she was. The carousel music reached a crescendo, the ghostly laughter growing louder, and then, from the shadows, a figure emerged.
Sarah, what is that? Who is that?
Tall and skeletal, it moved with an unnatural grace. Its clothes were tattered, its face hidden in the shadows of a wide-brimmed hat. In its gloved hand it held a silver charm, glinting in the moonlight. Emma's charm.
Emma's charm. How did it get that?
The figure lifted its head, and Sarah could have sworn she saw a twisted grin spread across its skeletal face. It raised its other hand, pointing towards the spinning carousel.
Join the carnival. Stay with us forever.
Sarah felt a scream building in her throat. She wanted to run, but her legs felt like lead. She could only watch as the figure took a step closer, its skeletal hand reaching out towards her. And then everything went black.